I think it worked.
It worked. So, welcome to Shabbos, to those who come regularly, and those who are new. We welcome you all. The rabbi is away this weekend, and so Joel is co-leading services. This is my husband, for those of you who don't know. And greetings to those who are online as well. We welcome you into your sacred space. Yes, they're not back there, but there's a big camera above you guys. So I'll be doing that a couple times during the service. Okay, so I want to acknowledge that it is a Memorial Day weekend. So we have a reading in relation to that, the tragedy in Uvalde. We think about that this week. And we are here as community, and not just to offer our hearts and our prayers, but also action, and that we need to think about what we need to do as a country in order for this not to keep happening. But we're going to start with a nigun Tommy Day Besht, which we invite you to sing. You don't need any prayer books, and it's a way to prepare yourselves to pray. So let yourselves go a little bit. Ay da 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 ay da 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 ay da 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 ay 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 da 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 ay da 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 ay da 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 ay da 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 ay da 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 ay try that second part again. Okay, again. Very nice. I love singing with him. Okay, so now we're going to continue on page 6 with a reading as we join together with Joel. Let's read responsively.
We're at the bottom of page 6. May the door of this synagogue be wide enough to receive all who hunger for love, all who are lonely for friendship.
May it welcome all who have cares to unburden, thanks to express, hopes to nurture.
May the door of this synagogue be narrow enough to shut out pettiness and pride, envy and enmity.
May its threshold be no stumbling block to young or straying feet.
May it be too high to admit complacency, selfishness, and harshness.
May this synagogue be, for all who enter, the doorway to a richer and more meaningful life. And we're going to continue with the lighting of the Shabbat candles, and it's a pleasure to invite Sarah Rumbau, who's doing double duty tonight, because she is also doing our tech this evening. Beautifully so far, I hope. You'll let us know at home and at here. But we're going to start on page 3, and then we'll be on page 2.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge of which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives. Bless all who enter this sanctuary in need, all who bring the offerings of their hearts. May our worship lead us to acts of kindness, peace, and love.
Amen.
Amen.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you. We're going to continue with Kabbalat Shabbat, these songs for Shabbat, beginning with Shir Chadash on page 344. Page 344 in the back. It is the second from the bottom. Shiru
L'Adonai kol haaretz, Shiru L'Adonai shir chadash, Shiru L'Adonai kol haaretz, Shiru L'Adonai shir chadash. Sing unto God, all the earth, a new song. I will sing unto God a new song. Sing unto God, and we'll all sing along. All the earth, a new song unto God. Shiru L'Adonai kol haaretz, Shiru L'Adonai shir chadash. I will sing unto God a new song.
We're going to continue with Maya Hayom, how beautiful this day, Shabbat Shalom, the day of Shabbat peace, on page 10. Page 10.
Maya Hayom, Shabbat Shalom. Maya Hayom, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Maya Hayom, Shabbat Shalom. Maya Hayom, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.
And we continue as we welcome the Sabbath bride, even though it's a little bright out still, on pages 20 and 21. We'll be doing verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. And on the 9th, we'll rise as a community to welcome the bride at the entrance of our sanctuary. We join together in a contemporary melody, Lecha Dodi.
Lecha lecha dodi, likrat likrat kala, pnei pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat likrat kala, pnei pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, pnei pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, pnei pnei Shabbat nekabela.
Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad, Hishmi'anu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, L'shemu tiferet v'litila la 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 la.
Lecha dodi, likrat kala, pnei pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, pnei pnei Shabbat nekabela.
Shmirat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, ki mekor habracha, merosh mikedem nitzucha, sof ma'aseh b'machshava tehi la 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 la
Lecha dodi, likrat likrat kala, pnei pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat likrat kala, pnei pnei Shabbat nekabela.
Hit'oreri, ki va'orech komi ori, ori shidaberi, kevod Adonai alayich nigla la la
Lecha dodi, likrat kala, pnei pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, pnei pnei Shabbat nekabela.
Boi v'shalom hateret bala, gam b'simcha u'v'tzolam, toch emunei am segula, boi chala, boi chala.
Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, pnei pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, pnei pnei Shabbat nekabela. La 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 la. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, pnei pnei Shabbat nekabela.
Please be seated. We continue with Shalom Aleichem as we welcome the angels of peace on page 24.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon. Mi melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Conclude this first part of our service with Hatzi Kaddish on the next page. Yitkadash Shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
V'yamad yivrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei
B'chayechon uvyomechon u'v'chayei l'chol Beit Yisrael ba'agala u'vizman kariv.
ve'imro
Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah mevorach le'alam u'lalmei almaya yitbarach.
Yitbarach ve'yishtabach ve'yitpa'ar ve'yiromam ve'yitnaseh ve'yithadar ve'yithaleh ve'yithalal Shemei Kedusha Berichu le'ela min kol birchata ve'shirata
Tushbechata v'nechemata damiran ve'alma.
Ve'imro.
Amen.
We rise for the formal call to worship, page 28.
Yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai. Oh yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai. Baruch hu et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai hamevorach leolam vaed. Lai lai lai, lai lai lai. Yai lai 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 lai, oh yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai.
Continue on page 30 as we join together.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim. B'chokhma poteach she'arim, uvitvuna meshane itim, umachalif et hazmanim, umesader et hakochavim, b'mishparotehem barakia kirtzono. Borei yom v'layla, golel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or, uma'avir yom umevi layla, umavdil bein yom uvein layla, Adonai tzvaot shemo. El Chai v'Kayam, Tamid Yimloch Aleinu le'olam va'ed, Baruch Atah Adonai Hama'ariv Aravim.
And on page 33, at the top of the page.
As you taught Torah to those whose names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me. Did you mean the struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Please be seated. We continue with V'ahavta on page 36. Ve'ahavta et
Adonai Elohecha, b'chol levavecha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha, v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha, v'shinantam levanecha, v'dibartam b'shivtecha b'veitecha, uv'lechtecha v'aderech, uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, Vitem Kedoshim Lelohechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem, Asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, lihiot lachem le'Elohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem, Adonai Elohechem emet.
On page 38 and then page 40, in the middle of the page.
All this we hold to be true and trustworthy for us. You alone are our God, and we are Israel, your people. You are our sovereign and Savior, who delivers us from oppressors' hands and saves us from tyrants' fists. You work wonders without number, marvels beyond count. You give us life and steady our footsteps. You performed miracles for us before Pharaoh, signs and wonders in the land of the Egyptians. You led your people Israel out from their midst to freedom for all time. When your children witnessed your dominance, they praised your name in gratitude, and they accepted your sovereignty. Moses, Miriam, and all Israel sang to you together, lifting their voices joyously. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar ba'kodesh, nora tehilot osef ele, nora tehilot osef ele. Malchotecha ra'ovanecha, vokei hayam lifnei Moshe uMiriam, zeli, zeli anu ve'ameru. Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed, Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed, Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed. V'nemar kifad Adonai et Yaakov, uge'alo miyad chazak mimenu, Baruch atah Adonai, Baruch Baruch Shema, Ga'al Yisrael. Amen.
Continue with Hashkivenu at the top of the next page, this prayer asking for the shelter of your peace. We join together.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu lishalom, ve'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu lishalom, ve'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu lishalom, ve'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim.
Ve'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Oshmor tzeitenu, ovoenu, lechaim u'shalom me'ata ve'ad olam. Sing with me. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu lishalom, ve'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu lishalom, ve'hamidenu
Eloheinu lishalom, ve'hamidenu shomreinu
Eloheinu
לחיים, השביענו אדוני, אלוהינו לשלום, והעמידנו שומרנו לחיים.
We continue on the next page as we celebrate Shabbat, the top of page 44, V'shamru.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
ביני ובין בני ישראל, עוד היא לעולם, עוד היא לעולם.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים
ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש,
שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
We continue with Tefillah as we rise on page 46, and I invite you to rise at home as well.
Adonai, sifatai tiftach, Ofi agid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei Hakol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot V'imahot, U'mevii Geula Livnei V'neihem, L'ma'an Shemo Be'ahava. Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayeh hakol atah Rav le'hoshia. Morid hatal, Mechalkel chayim bechesed, Mechayeh hakol berachamim rabim. Somech noflim ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות,
Umido melach, melech memit, umechayeh, umatzmiach Yeshua, v'ne'eman ata le'achayot hakol. Baruch atah Adonai, mechayeh hakol. Ata kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kedoshim b'chol yom yahalelucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh. Please be seated. We continue Tefillah as we read together on page 55 at the top of the page. Actually, the very bottom of the page, sorry.
The meaning of Shabbat is to celebrate time rather than space. 6 days a week, we live under the tyranny of things in space. On Shabbat, we try to become attuned to the holiness of time. It is a day on which we are called upon to share in what is eternal in time, to turn from the results of creation to the mystery of creation, from the world of creation to the creation of the world.
On page 56, Ritzei.
Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu be'amcha Yisrael, u'tefilatam be'ahava tekabel, u'tehi l'ratzon tamid avodat Yisrael amecha. El karov l'chol korav, pnei el avadecha v'chonenu, shefoch ruchacha aleinu. V'tetzenena einenu b'shuvacha l'tzion berachamim. Baruch atah Adonai, amachazir shechinato l'tzion.
And from Odim, the top of page 59, we read together. God of goodness, we give thanks for the gift of life, wonder beyond words, for the awareness of soul, our light within, for the world around us so filled with beauty, for the richness of the earth, which day by day sustains us. For all these and more, we offer thanks. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha, ulecha na'eh lehodot. And the prayer for peace, much needed in so many ways on this Shabbat, on page 60. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tarsim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tarsim Leolam. Ki ata melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki ata melech adon lechol hashalom. V'tov beinecha levarech et amcha Yisrael bechol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. ברוך אתה אדוני עושה השלום. Pause now for our own thoughts and our own prayers for a few moments, and then we'll be coming back to page 62 at the bottom.
Shalom bimromav, uyaseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, uyaseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru Amen.
Now, a presentation, our sermon this evening. I'm happy to introduce Stacy Van Wagner, who will be sharing some of her thoughts on Beha'alotecha, which is the last Torah portion of the book of Leviticus. We are finished with Leviticus. We move on to Bamidbar, which was my bar mitzvah portion, next week. So I invite you forward and welcome.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
Thanks so much for the opportunity to be up here. I'm honored to do it. Sometimes I think Leviticus gets a bad rap. It is a lot of lists. It's a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of stuff packed in there. Something interesting about Leviticus, though, it frames how we often identify ourselves as Jews and how others identify us as Jews. I had the honor of doing a Torah portion, or a sermon for a Torah portion in Leviticus last year that focused on the laws of kashrut, which is one of the main ways we ourselves are identified and others identify us. Now I get the special opportunity of digging into the very end of Leviticus. It's kind of a doozy. There's a lot going on in this week's Torah portion. It literally ends with the phrase, "These are the commandments that the Eternal gave Moses for the Israelite people on Mount Sinai." So I hope you were paying attention. After all of the laws in Leviticus, the first section of Bechukotai starts with the words, "Keep my laws." It's referred to often as my laws, the portion in and of itself. These are the things you get, and this is how the world will look if you abide by my laws. And the things you get, these promises that are in the first section of this Torah portion, they're pretty good. God speaks and asks Moses to relay the promises of fruitfulness, of security, of godly presence, of prosperity, and of peace. Super great, super uplifting in the beginning of this portion. Takes a hard left right in the middle. There's this turn, and the second half is referred to often as curses. And traditionally and historically, in fact, this section is chanted in like a really hushed tone and hurried through to not, to be certain not to invoke these curses or focus too hard on them or have them come into our lives. It's really rough, really rough. Curses aren't without warrant, however. God in this section simply offers some very clear lines about what's going to happen if these laws aren't abided by. Spurning, desolation, isolation, heaping carcasses, eating and never being satisfied, wild beasts. The phrase, "I will make your skies like iron and earth like copper so that your strength will be spent upon no purpose." That's bleak. That is bleak. But, so we have promises and we have curses. God doesn't leave us hanging in the very end of this portion. There's a set of vows at the end of this parsha. And fun fact, I was like today years old, or this week years old, when I learned what the word votive meant, that it was actually referred to the word vow. I just thought it was a candle. I also, in this portion, learned what sabbatical meant, which the fact that I hadn't put together, like, you do that in your 7th year, Sabbath, 7th day. The fact that I hadn't put that together until literally this week, this is just a true confession. This always happens when I delve into a Torah portion. I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. So we have these votive laws. and these votive instructions and how to give sacrifice and how to count things very specifically. And they're very hyper specific. But it's not about being punished or rewarded by God. It's a list of how-tos. It's a very clear lens with which to focus on how we are responsible for making beauty and making pain not only for ourselves, but for the entirety of the world. You have promises and you have curses, but this is the to-do portion. We had all of the laws of Leviticus, of course, and there's actually a lot of don't do's. These are some to-dos. And so we're gifted with a roadmap. But the interesting portion of this is that though this may be from the mouth of God, they're not handed down. None of these are handed down by some kind of vengeful, nebulous God concept. They're actually a very concrete reality. In the section of curses, it says if you don't care for the earth will suffer and there'll be starvation. If you create suffering and inequity in the world, there will be suffering and inequity, and there will be pain and there will be violence. This is on us. It's on us to tend to our fields and our homes and our partners and our communities. And that's scary. It's scary that bad things will happen if we don't do these. But guess what? Boy, if we do, some really fantastic things will. God will reward us. Actually, we will have rewarded ourselves. And this concept is very empowering, and it speaks directly to the Jewish notion of co-creation. Now, with the exception of the first line of this portion, follow my laws, there aren't any more caveats in the beginning. There's no caveats with each of the promises. If you don't do this or if you don't do that, I'm going to give you this. It's just the promises, with exception of follow my laws. That being said, there was one phrase in there that confused me massively. And of course, that's the one I focused on. I like to write and I like language, and so with all of this densely packed Torah portion, not that any of them aren't densely packed, you'd think I'd have picked a curse section, because that language is so rich and it's so dark, but I found myself really stuck on this promise. It's a promise that sounds like a commandment, and it seemed at first read out of place with all the others. You shall eat old grain long stored, and you shall have to clear out the old to make room for the new. V'yashon mipnei chadash totziu. Clean out the old to make room for the new. Translated, it sounds like this one-off commandment in the sea of promises. I think it's not. This line speaks of abundance. There will be abundance. You're going to have so much grain that you're going to have to find something to do with the grain in the storehouses to make room for the abundance that sits on the threshing room floor. Recognize the things that don't belong. What's there there's not room for it. Use it, appreciate it, make room for the new, because there will be new. Moving all that grain is hard. Transitions are very hard. A few years ago, I was speaking with Rabbi Andy Kahn, who grew up in our congregation here. He's in New York now. I was asking about trying to be innovative while maintaining concepts of tradition, holding on to those for our community. He said something very interesting to me. Why? Why? What's the purpose of tradition for tradition's sake? And I think about that often. Judaism is rooted in transition. It's rooted in ritual, and I think those are often confounded. We get tender about it. I know I am, congregationally, and I'm tender about it very much in my own personal life. But there are opportunities to honor the old grain. There are opportunities to eat it, to appreciate it, to savor it, to ensure that there is room on the storeroom floor for that new harvest. I'm encouraging myself to think about that as I move throughout my life. I am not always good at it. I want to encourage all of us to honor the power that we have to fulfill our vows to our community, to appreciate tradition, but to recognize the fulfilled promise of new abundance. Because I process things linguistically, and I love language, and this line in this portion struck me. I write poetry about it, and so the last bit that I'm going to share with this concept of moving to the new and making room for the new while appreciating the old is just a piece called Box of One Last Glance. G.I. Joe, his rubber band intestines snapped. Adapter for a lost camera full of untended memories. A shuttered restaurant gift card. Jerry the stuffed lemur, his seat is split. A Dallas-Fort Worth airport coffee mug handle. Someone has decidedly messed with Texas. Tails who is missing a tail, and Knuckles who is missing his fist, and Sonic who is missing both feet, though his coat might be salvaged with the right color Sharpie. Christie's red-hot blue glue PVC cement lid firmly and forever on. Tarnished currency from a country that will now go unvisited. Yesterday, and frankly most of the day before. Keys to a house no longer a home. Key to a diary too tender to read. An unwalked vow, an unsung hymn. A full storehouse, new grain on the threshing room floor. An evil eye necklace whose broken clasp is letting in all the curses. Thank you so much. And Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.
Stay
Shabbat
dry
Shalom.
tonight.
Wow.
Thank you, Stacy. What beautiful words. Very linguistic. And now we are going to have some announcements I'm happy to say, I think he's happy for me to say, past president, Aaron Peterson.
Right.
So Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
And those at home, thank you for joining us as well. Being here on the long weekend, I'm happy to see how many people are here. But it's raining out there, so it's drier in here. So a lot going on over the next 2 weeks. I think this weekend is, we do have, of course, Saturday services. Those are on Zoom right now, and look to get back in person at some point soon. But 9 o'clock for Torah study, 10 o'clock for the Saturday service. But then following that up, so I'm going to move forward into the first few weeks of June, where it's going to get kind of crazy. So next weekend, of course, Friday night, that will be the last weekend that Rabbi TV will be with us. So Erev Shabbat here, so come say goodbye. Probably hear his last interesting sermon about, I don't know which TV show he'll mention that time. And then, of course, so wish him well in Saturday service. And his last official service will be that following Sunday, which is Shavuot, and the Yizkor service as well. Move ahead to the weekend after that, the 10th, which will be the Sisterhood Shabbat. That will be in here, so looking forward to that, of course. And let me get the title of that one. So it's the wise, almost said the ways, but the wise of Erev Shabbat. So again, that'll be in here, in person and broadcast. And then following that, on Saturday night, is the Rutlinger Music Concert Series. And I'm trying to go through the bulletin here. Is the Stephen Sondheim, the tribute concert. So definitely that's going to be an in-person only, so that will not be broadcast. So it is a first come, first serve, of course, dependent on the room in here. So if you want to come see that, show up early and enjoy, but it will be in-person only. And after that, of course, I think the school, religious schools and education program is starting up kind of a summer play date series. And that'll be the first one, that would be on Sunday the 12th. But that's really about it. As I often say, if you really want more information, you didn't listen to everything I said and I didn't quite get it right, I'm not the expert, please go to the Shabbat Shalom email that's sent out every Thursday. Also available online, and of course just today, hot off the press, the new bulletin for the month of June is out, so take a look at that. And as always, the stuff is also on the calendar as well on the website. So Shabbat Shalom, and thank you very much.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Thanks, Aaron. Now we're going to move to a Mishnah Berach prayer, which you can find on page 253. And we pause here as we hear the names of those that you're asking, refuah shlema, complete recovery of body, mind, and spirit. And of course, we begin with those in Uvalde, the families, the friends, the community, and everyone who is suffering on this day. We're also thinking of those of the Ukrainian people, and we're also thinking, as we often forget, of the over 1 million people who have died from COVID and all of the lives that were affected that way. So we're going to go around the room to see if there are other names that you would say. Thank you. Anyone else? For all these names and for those that we're holding in our hearts, as we think of, we join together.
Avotenu mikor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishebeach imotenu mikor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
As we move towards the conclusion of our service, we begin with Aleinu on page 282 and then 287. I'll ask you to rise as the ark is opened.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'Adon HaKol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
Please be seated. The Shabbat reading before the Mourner's Kaddish, we begin these words as we remember our loved ones in all of our armed services who have lost their lives, this beautiful poem by Archibald MacLeish. You have it in your prayer booklets as well. The young dead soldiers do not speak. The dead soldiers do not speak, nevertheless, they are heard in the still houses. Who has not heard them? They have silence that speaks for them at night and when the clock counts. They say, we were young, we have died, remember us. They say, we have done what we could, but until it is finished, it is not done. They say, we have given our lives, but until it is finished, no one can know what our lives gave. They say, our deaths are not ours, they are yours. They will mean what you make them. They say, whether our lives and our deaths were for peace and a new hope or for nothing, we cannot say. It is you who must say this. They say, we leave you our deaths. Give them their meaning. Give them an end to the war and a true peace. Give them a victory that ends the war and a peace afterwards. Give them their meaning. We were young, they say. We have died. Remember us. On this Shabbat, we first remember those who we've lost in Uvalde, and a couple things. One is that guns have overtaken car crashes to become the leading cause of death now in U.S. children and teenagers. And the attack in Uvalde at Robb Elementary School, there were 19 children and 2 teachers who were killed. And there have been, this year alone, 30 other shootings at U.S. schools. And so while we say our prayers and we say these prayers, my desire and hope is that people will not just share their hopes and prayers. I think I've heard that so many times this week, and I appreciate it, but I think as Jews, one of the things we do is that there's action. And even in this week's Torah portion, B'halotecha, to receive those gifts, it says that you should walk, that it's not just about saying I love you. It's walking forward. It's starting somewhere and walking forward. And so I invite all of you to take action, because we can't have this happen over and over and over again. I was watching the kids play here the other day. My office has a big little windows out to the patio, and they're always banging on it and saying hi and stuff. And it just really hit me this week. And I know that everybody has a story like that, because I've been talking to many congregants this week. And I'm not immune to it either. So I wanted to share all that, and I wanted to share the names of those who have died. And so on this Shabbat, we remember first co-teachers Eva Morales, who taught for 17 years, and Irma Garcia, who taught for 23 years. And we remember 8-year-old Uzia Garcia, 9-year-old Ellie Garcia, and 10-year-olds Xavier Javier Lopez, Elihana Cruz Lopez, Jose Flores, cousins Jace Luevanos, and Jaila Seguera, Laila Salazar, Amari Joe Garza, cousins Jackie Cazares, and Annabel Guadalupe Rodriguez, Rogelio Torres, Alethalia Ramirez, McKenna Lee Elrod, Nave Bravo, Lexi Rubio, Tess Marie Matt, Mete Rodriguez, and 11-year-old Miranda Mathis. To those names we add in the period of Shloshim, Hazel Henderson, stepmother of Joshua Kay, who passed away this week, as well as Joan Brasham, and if there are others who are observing a Shloshim, if they would rise. And if you would share the name. Thank you. And we say to the mourners together, it's on page 3 at the bottom. Hamakom yinachem etchem, b'tov sha'ar avilei Zion v'Yerushalayim. May God console you with all who mourn in Zion and Jerusalem. And now I'll ask those who are observing a yard site to please rise. In our community, we are thinking of Judith Bam, Leo Becker, Raisa Berlin, Minawa Comas Last, Burton Dorfman, Lev Frumkin, Roy Goldberg, Hazel Henderson, Marcy Horvitz, Justin Caron, Adolf I. Katz, Patricia Keski, Albert Carl Cliffar, Leo Leonard, Esther Littman, Chuck Mayer, Gordon Marthaler, Louis Martin, Sigmund Siche Morer, Harry L. Nemetz, Paul Newman, Bernard Utkin, Morris Rosen, Edward Selden, Harry Solomon Sklar, Minnie Smiley, Yetta Hannah Sussman, Matthew Terry, Sidney Thal, Mary Thal, Janice Willinger, Andrei Zelichenko, Leah Zeskina. And if there are other names who weren't said, we rise as a community as we mourn on page 294, page 294.
Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, B'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, B'chayechon u'yomechon, u'v'chaye dechol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala u'vizman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevorach, le'olam u'lalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, V'yithadar v'yitalev v'yitalal, shemei dekudesha barichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen.
We say zichronam livracha. May all those be remembered for a blessing. We say amen.
Amen.
Please be seated for one more minute. So a few thank yous to our accompanist Debbie Japp for every week for her beautiful playing. Candles, Sarah Rumbau, announcements, Aaron Peterson, the beautiful sermon, Stacy Van Wagner. Thank you very much. It was beautiful and very informative. Service support, Vivian Morrison and Manny Espinoza, and our security, Sean Berthel, who's here every single week, is on vacation. So it has been great to have John Barnes step in, and I appreciate that. We're going to conclude this evening, followed by Kiddush and Motzi, with the prayer, Lo Yisagoy, on page 34. Is that right? At the 340 something, yes.
41.
Thank you. 341 at the bottom.
That's the same except for the numbers, right?
Yes. Nation shall not take up sword against nation. They shall never again study war. And it's a simple two-part round, beginning with shalom, and we'll do it a couple times.
Shalom, 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 shalom. Lo yisagoy el goy erev, lo yilmedu od milchama, lo yisagoy el goy erev, lo yilmedu od milchama.
Follow him. Start over.
Shalom, shalom. Shalom. Lo yisagoy el goy cherev, lo yilmedu od milchama. Lo yisagoy el goy cherev, lo yilmedu od milchama.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
We're going to be next doing Kiddush. If you're at home, you can take up your Kiddush cup with wine or grape juice. We'll be on page 5 and then page 302 if we rise as we celebrate Shabbat. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu V'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu Zikaron lema'aseh bereshit Ki hu yom techila lemikra'e kodesh Zecher litziat Mitzrayim Kivanu v'acharta Yotanu kidashta Mikol ha'amim V'shabbat kodshecha Ve'ahava uvratzon Hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat L'chaim. And I want to thank my husband too, who I forgot to thank. He'll remind me of that later. But
I'll remind him now.
thank you, Joel, for the beautiful co-leading, and he'll be leading with me tomorrow as well. So the double duty, thank you.
You're welcome.
And we join for the blessing over bread, and we'll invite you to take some on your way out.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Hamotzi lechem min haaretz b'tei avon. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.